Howdy Hive Scummers and welcome to Wellywood Wargaming. My name is Damon and in this video I'll be looking at the new Underhells campaign system for the Book of Desolation. Thanks again to Games Workshop for supplying this fantastic book to me. I have to say, of all the Hive Secundus stuff that's been released so far, the Book of Desolation is by far my favourite thing. You know I like my rules, you know I like my lore, so this one is really a big one for me. Is it the best Necromunda book so far in the series since the new issue of the game? Probably. It's right up there. It's got some fantastic stuff in here, not least, of course, the Malstrain gangs and corrupted gangs, as well as all the Spira information, some fantastic lore, and, of course, the new Underhells campaign as well, which I'm really excited to share with you today. Now, I did, and I have meant to do a series on all the different campaign systems, but I thought I'd wait until this one came out before I even started this series, and I'm actually going to work backwards here, starting with the Underhells campaign that is contained within this book. So you can find all the rules within this book. And I just want a quick disclaimer, actually. The Underhells campaign that you get in the book for Hive Secundus, the actual box set, is not the same Underhells campaign that you get in here. I know it's confusing. They probably should have given them two different names, but you get a much more stripped back two-player Underhells campaign in the box set. It's great. It's good fun. You can watch the battle reports that I've done on that, but it is very minimal. It's very stripped back. It's a sort of introduction to Necromunda in the way that you play it. The Underhells campaign that's in the Book of Desolation is much more fleshed out. It involves many gangs, not just two. It is not a two-player campaign. It involves vehicles. It involves all of the good stuff, including Abyssal Ferryman, which we'll get into at another point soon as well. So just that quick bit of information for you. Please don't get confused between the Underhells campaign that is in the boxed set and the Underhells campaign that is in here. That is what we're going to be focusing on today. Before I get started though, please do like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon as well to keep me supported in this here endeavour. So a quick bit of spiel on the Underhells campaign here. The Underhells campaign is a complete narrative campaign that can be used alongside the Necromunda core rulebook. Unlike other Necromunda campaigns, it follows a group of daring explorers delving into the ancient ruins of Secundus in search of fabled archaeotech. Each player takes on the role of a gang crossing the cursed wastes around the fallen hive and then descending into its ruined depths. Along the way, they must fight the minions of the Malstrain Patriarch and hopefully escape with their lives. So pretty grimdark there, and I have to say so far, the lore and everything that surrounds Hive Secundus I think is particularly engaging and interesting. And the setting for the Underhells campaign is just fantastic in my book. Like every single Necromunda campaign to date, there are different versions of it. All of them have one thing in common, and that is an arbitrator. You're always going to need an arbitrator. The arbitrator is basically the referee of sorts, or in fact, a sort of dungeon master, the person who is able to organize and keep all the players in the campaign happy and up to date with what's going on in that campaign. So usually that's my role in my gaming groups, but you know, I've been an arbitrator myself, but I've also been just a player and let other people arbitrate as well. I think it's good in your gaming groups to sort of take it in turns, but usually the arbitrator is the person who is usually the most organized. So the gangs that are involved in an Underhells campaign typically are any of the gangs involved in Necromunda to date. They don't have to be Tech Hunters, Spiras, or Malstrain gangs. However, the latter, the Malstrain gangs, do center quite heavily in this campaign. So I would suggest either the arbitrator or one of the players in your group, depending on how many gangs there are, takes the role of at least either a Malstrain gang or a Malstrain corrupted gang. The rest of the gangs can either be on the side of the Malstrain or on the side of the incursion gangs, the Tech Hunters, the Archeo loot people. What I like about this campaign so far is that it's a bit of a hybrid between, say, a Dominion campaign and an Ash Wastes campaign. So yes, you do have vehicles, but they're kind of limited in how you use them. We're going to look at that in a little bit more detail soon. The Underhells campaign is divided into 3 different phases with downtime in between. The first phase is the incursion phase. We then have downtime. We then have the delving phase. We then have more downtime. And then the survival phase is the ultimate final badass section of the campaign. In these 3 phases, you have campaign territories, which you don't get to keep onto. Unlike a Dominion campaign, you don't stack these territories up and keep getting the boons from them. What happens is you actually move through the Underhells, gaining territories as you go. You can't just collect them all. You have to just have one at a time, and it changes each cycle, which is pretty cool. The territories are also keyed to different phases, so depending on where you are in the campaign, you have access to different types of territories and different types of boons therein. The pre and post battle sequences are pretty much the same as most other campaigns, except there are a couple of key differences. The no territory is nominated as the stake for battles, so like I said, you can't lose the territory, you just automatically get a new one each cycle. The reassign territory step of the post-battle sequence is skipped as a result of that. Captives may not be sold to the guilders at all. The visit the trading post sub-step of the update roster step of the post-battle sequence is affected by the Desolation level. More on that later. How do you win a Underhells campaign? This is quite varied really, and there won't generally be one player in the campaign that wins everything. There are different criteria to win. So the gang that gets the most exploration points is a winner of sorts, so that's the explorator. The next one is the slayer of the Malstrain, so the gang that slayed the most Malstrain gene stealers and got the most scalps from them. You then have Lord of Secundus, so this is the one with the highest reputation, so this again might be different to the other two before that. We have Warmonger, so this is the player who played the most battles during the campaign. We have Champion of the Malstrain, so this player's gang who won the most scenarios for the Malstrain, so who was on the side of the Malstrain, or the baddies, so to speak. And on the flip side of that, you have the player's gang who won the most scenarios for the Archeo Hunters there as well. So many ways to win the campaign. As the arbitrator, you will need to take charge of how long the campaign lasts. Like I said, it's divided into these different cycles. Really, I would say each of the phases is probably like 2 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how often you and your gaming group can get together, or indeed how many players there are in that group. But I would say maybe 2 weeks for each of the sort of, phases, and then in between that for downtime, maybe a week or another 2 weeks or so. So the whole thing should last maybe 10 weeks. In terms of the gang composition now, pretty much the same as every other campaign, except maybe, the Aranthian Succession, where you get lots and lots of money. In this one, you get 1,000 credits to spend on your gang. And depending on whether you are a goodie or a baddie, whether you're aligned with the Malstrain, the baddies, or the Archeo looters, so to speak, the goodies in this case, it depends whether you get extras. So if you are aligned with the Malstrain, if you choose to be a baddie, then you get 400 credits worth of vehicles, mounts and things like that on top of your 1,000 credit starting cash. And if you're one of the goodies, you get a free Abyssal Ferryman team. I'm going to do a separate video on the Abyssal Ferryman because they are just freaking awesome, and I cannot wait to sort of, go through the Abyssal Ferryman and how they work. But essentially, you get 3 free guys with different stats that you can choose and different, amounts of equipment and whatnot. And you can also get some Dramatis Personae ones as well, which is awesome. The other thing around your allegiance as well, should you be goodie or baddie, is how it affects the madness and desolation rules, which we're going to go into shortly as well. At the start of each battle, if you're Malstrain aligned, you get a +1 or a -1 to determine how many roaming horrors are in that scenario. So you get a little bit more choice on that if you are one of the baddies. This allegiance also changes the madness and desolation rules that we're going to go into soon as well. So depending on which side of the coin you are, it really does depend how you affect the madness and desolation rules. At the start of each campaign cycle, each gang discards all the territories they control, unless stated otherwise, and randomly determine the next territory they move to by rolling on the relevant table below. Now this depends on which phase you are in. So if you're on the incursion phase, you roll a d6 to see which one of the territories you get there. If you are in the delving phase, same again, and if you are in the survival phase as well, is a separate table to decide the territories that you get in each of those phases. Issuing and accepting challenges. Similar to other campaigns, but not the same. During each cycle, each player may issue one challenge to another gang. In the first campaign cycle, challenges are made in a random order. In later cycles, they are made in ascending order of gang rating, starting with the gang with the lowest gang rating. So the minnows get to choose and try and giant kill some of the bigger gangs in the campaign. When a gang is challenged, they may accept or decline. If the challenge is accepted, a battle is fought. If the challenge is declined, the gang that issued the challenge gains 2 exploration points. So pretty cool. You don't gain or lose territory this way, but you do gain and lose exploration points. In terms of selecting scenarios, there are a bunch of scenarios that we're not going to go into in too much detail in the back of this book, and they are all fantastic. In terms of, deciding which scenario to play, there are, again, 2d6 tables for each of those phases. So if you are in the incursion phase, you roll 2d6 to see which scenario. If you are in the delving phase, same again, and survival as well. Same again, pretty straightforward with all that stuff. So here's where the fun stuff comes in. Exploration points now. This is new and entirely unique to the Underhells campaign. In addition to their use in determining the changing of the phase, players may spend exploration points during downtime. This represents valuable archaeotech and ancient ruins they may have encountered during the journey to Secundus, or the time they have taken to pause as they fully investigate a new area. Exploration points are spent in the following ways. You can spend up to 5 points on gaining D3 times 10 credits per point spent. So if you want to just get money, you trade these things in for money, and you can spend up to 5 of them during downtime to get some more money. Or you can spend 2 points on choosing the gang's next territory. So rather than having a randomly assigned territory, you can actually choose it by spending 2 points, which is pretty good. The next one, and probably the best one, is 6 points can be spent to gain an additional territory. This is always randomly determined. So you can get an additional territory, which thus probably gives you extra money or a different boon on top of the one that you've already got around that phase. So if you've got loads and loads of exploration points, you might want to think about getting a second random territory there. After the first phase and during downtime, the following rules apply. So during downtime, fighters recover. So all of your fighters, injuries and whatnot, they come out of convalescence or whatever it is. Your captives are returned as well. Experienced Juves and prospects are promoted, and fresh recruitment is there as well. All gangs gain 250 credits during downtime, and there are 2 downtimes in this campaign, so 500 credits all in all, which is pretty damn good. And this is to be spent on new equipment from their gang equipment list, or to recruit new fighters, vehicles, and or hangers-on. These credits must be spent now and cannot be added to the gang's stash. So you've really got to spend them all. Take advantage of that, because this is quite a brutal campaign. During downtime as well, and again, this is something that your arbitrator is going to decide on, is side battles. Now, side battles are a great way to keep players interested during downtime. Some people want to play more than others. Some people just have lives and children and stuff and can't play quite as much. So for those that want to play extra, side battles are a good way of doing it. In a side battle, you still gain XP, and you still gain injuries and things like that, but what you don't gain is any credits or rewards from the scenarios and stuff. So it's a good way of balancing things out. You still, get the benefits of XP and whatnot just from playing a game, but you're also likely to get more injuries as a result. But I think it's a nice way of keeping people occupied during downtime. So madness, desolation, and darkness are 3 factors you've got to take into account within an Underhells campaign, and these escalate and go up in each phase of the campaign. So, madness. The first thing with madness now, if you are in the first phase of the campaign, Archeo Hunter affiliated fighters who fail to rally after gaining the broken condition must pass a willpower check or gain the insane condition. Pretty nasty. The Mouse Drain affiliated fighters apply a -1 modifier to all nerve tests. Note that is in the first phase of the campaign. In the second phase of the campaign, Archeo Hunter affiliated fighters who fail to rally after gaining the broken condition also gain the insane condition. So the same as the first phase there. Mouse Drain affiliated gangs are unaffected. So a little bit better for the Mouse Drain in the second phase of the campaign. In the third and final phase of the campaign, we have Shadow of the Broodmind. Archeo Hunter affiliated gangs who would gain the broken condition gain the insane condition instead. Nasty. Mouse Drain affiliated fighters apply a +1 modifier to all nerve tests. So the Mouse Drain getting better as the campaign goes on. There's a special rule here around insanity in the case of an Underhells campaign. Insanity is actually treated slightly differently, and where you would have a result of a 3 or 4 on the insanity table where your opponent controls you, you are instead activated as part of the Mouse Drain roaming horrors. So it's slightly different in the way that you do it, but we're going to talk about the roaming horrors soon. So now for Desolation, and this is another special rule that escalates depending on how far you are through the campaign phases. In the first phase, we had limited trade. Archeo Hunter affiliated gangs cannot access their gang equipment list or add additional models after creation, and all items in the trading post increased their rare and illegal ratings by 2. So everything is harder to get, and yeah, that's going to be pretty hard in the first phase there. For Malstrain affiliated gangs, you cannot access your gang equipment list or add additional models after creation, and all items in the trading post increase their rare and illegal ratings by 6, with common items gaining rare 12. Brutal, absolutely brutal. The next phase, the second phase of the campaign, all gangs cannot access their gang equipment list or add additional models after creation, and all items in the trading post increase their rare and illegal ratings by 4, with common items gaining a rare 10. So that kind of evens things out in the second phase. In the third phase, we get cut off from the world. I'm sure you can imagine what this is going to be. Archaeo Hunter affiliated gangs cannot access their gang equipment list or add additional models after creation, and all items in the trading post increase their rare and illegal ratings by 6, with common items gaining rare 12. Malstrain affiliated gangs cannot access their gang equipment list or add additional models after creation. All items in the trading post increase their rare and illegal ratings by 2. So it switches. In the middle there, it's kind of even Stevens. In the first phase, the Archaeo Hunters get better access. In the last phase, the Malstrain get better access. And the last factor to take into account here is darkness. So we've had madness, desolation, and now darkness. The darkness affects the visibility rule as you go through the campaign. So heavy skies in the first one, visibility X rule is in effect for all battles, and the maximum value is 18 inches. So 18 inches is the maximum value that you can see in the darkness in the first phase of the campaign. In the second phase of the campaign, this goes to 12 inches, and in the third phase, Stygian depths, this value goes to 9 inches. So 18, 12, and 9 as you go through the campaign, and it gets darker and more gloomy and horrific. In terms of the Underhells campaign territories, they are completely unique to the Underhells campaign itself. I'm not going to go through all of them, but what I might do here is just pick one from each phase and read them out. Let's go with Hidden Holdfast for the first phase here. This one gives your gang 2d6 times 10 credits from this territory when collecting income. Pretty good. And the special here is while a gang controls this territory, during step 6 of the pre-battle sequence, D3 of your fighters gain Infiltrate. Very, very cool, but remember, you can't keep this for the whole campaign, so that's just for the one game, or the one cycle. Alright then, looking at another one here in the second phase, this is Gutted Rig. The gang earns d6 times 10 credits from this territory when collecting income, and while a gang controls this territory, they may add up to d6 times 10 credits worth of equipment from their gang equipment list to their stash during the post-battle sequence for free. Pretty nice. Right then, let's go to the last one in the final phase of the campaign here, the Xenos Boneyard for the Underhells part of the campaign. The gang earns 2d6 times 10 credits from this territory when collecting income. While a gang controls this territory during step 6 of the pre-battle sequence, D3 fighters gain the Fearsome skill for the battle. Pretty cool. Okay, so something else that's unique to the scenarios around the Underhells campaign is roaming horrors. And I do like this because it further makes me feel like I'm playing Space Crusade or Hero Quest. So what you get here is essentially NPCs that you add to the scenarios. Now, depending on the scenario that they play, you get to roll to determine how many bad guys are there. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but these Malstrain fighters are as follows. You can get Tyramites, Brood Scum leaders, which have +1 wound and +1 attack. You've also got Malstrain Gene Stealers, and if you're really unlucky, you get the Malstrain Prime, which is a Malstrain Gene Stealer with +1 attack, +1 wound. Pretty nasty if you roll a 66 there. And this, again, depends where you are in the campaign and the scenario that you're playing. Now, what's really cool about this is these Malstrain forces, these critters that just roam around the battlefield, they don't give a damn if you're Malstrain or not. They will attack anyone equally. Whoever's the closest, they'll attack you. The Brood Scum are a little bit more cautious generally and will usually choose to shoot you, whereas the Malstrain Gene Stealers are hyper aggressive and will just rip you to shreds with their claws whenever they can. The roaming horrors don't run out of ammo, they don't need to take break checks, they don't get XP, but you get XP for killing them, so that's pretty cool. And again, if you're killing Malstrain Gene Stealers, they all count towards your kill count at the end of the campaign for Malstrain Killer. Right, the next thing, and something I really liked about the initial Underhells campaign, the 2-player Underhells campaign, is carried over here but in a slightly different way. And that is the harvesting of data crystals. Now this is really cool and probably my favorite thing about the campaign in all, actually. So you can harvest data crystals. It's a basic action to do so from a data crystal stack. It's a basic action to do so, and you need to pass an intelligence check to do it. If you pass the intelligence check, then you get a data crystal. Only one data crystal can be carried by a fighter at one time. If your fighter goes out of action or gets seriously injured, you drop that crystal where they are. Someone else can then go and pick it up if they like. However, if you fail that intelligence check, you get add 1 to the roll to generate roaming horrors at the start of the next round. So the more you fail those intelligence checks, the more roaming horrors you get. I can see Ogryns and particularly Redemptionists doing pretty badly at collecting data crystals, but again, I quite like that. It's nice and fluffy. Vansar should really be the best at harvesting data crystals, and they are, because they've got higher intelligence. I think Delac have got high intelligence, and so have Squats as well, which makes sense. Using data crystals is slightly different here to the Underhells 2-player campaign, and just probably one of my favorite things about the campaign so far. Now you get to choose one of two things. You can either trade in a data crystal for D3 times 10 credits if you're really strapped for cash, or you just need some of that cash to help you out in the campaign, or you can roll a D6 on the following table, which I think is the far better option. If you roll a 1, your fighter can gain D3 XP, which is pretty cool. Extra XP is always good. If you roll a 2 to 3, a fighter of your choice gains a random skill from one of their primary skill sets. I love this. 4 to 5, a fighter of your choice gains a random skill from their secondary skill sets. And if you roll a 6, a fighter of your choice gains a random skill from any skill set. So yes, you can indeed have a Vansar using savagery skills. You could have finesse skills on an Ogryn. Think about that. Let that sink in. I think this is something that Necromunda has needed for quite some time. I feel like it's too hard to get new skills, and this is a great way of doing it and including it in the campaign system. So all in all, I would say that the Underhells campaign system that is here in this book, the Book of Desolation, is on paper probably my favorite campaign system so far. I love the Uprising campaign as well. I think that's particularly good. The Law and Misrule one, they're all really good, right? So a hybrid of them is often the way to go. But I think the next campaign system I play is most definitely going to be the one in the Book of Desolation here. If you'd like to get the full rules for this, then of course do buy this book. Please do buy this book, because it is a fantastic book. Like I said, I think probably one of the best ones so far, bar maybe the Book of Faith, because it's Cawdor. But yeah, fantastic book, loads of really cool stuff in there. If you like this video, please do like, share, subscribe, and check out the Patreon as well. Comment down below, let me know what you think about this campaign. Is it good, is it bad? What do you think? Are you excited about it? Because I certainly am. Anyway, I'll be back with another video real soon. Peace out.